Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Rampage. I imagine when they were making a Rampage movie, or planning on making a Rampage movie, they were like, hey, what if we made a Rampage movie? And they're like, yeah, that sounds like an awesome idea. I would love to see a Rampage movie. It's a fun, kind of quirky video game, and you can have like people turn into monsters, and they go, oh, we have The Rock in this. And they're like, oh, cool, so The Rock will turn into the gorilla, obviously, and we'll get someone else to be the lizard Lizzie, and we'll get, a wolf, and yeah, we'll have all those monsters. But hear me out. What if we don't have people turn into monsters? What if we just have the monsters? So it's just a monster movie. Yeah, no, it's just a monster. That's all it is. It's just a monster movie with The Rock in it. Yeah, and we'll get the guy who directed the disaster movie with The Rock in it to direct this one. Oh, it'll be stupid? Oh, it'll be totally stupid, dude. Don't worry about it. Rampage is a dumb movie, and I think if you've seen most people talk about it, they're like, oh, how it's really stupid and stuff. But in some ways, it like holds back on the stupidity. It's like normal stupid and not like fun or stupid, or really pushing the kind of action comedy thing that The Rock was so good at recently in Jumanji. Rampage sort of doesn't have as much fun with what it's doing as Jumanji was something, or Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle to be specific, is something that I never expected to be any good, and then actually was, but I thought, was a little silly and stupid, but at least got its silly and stupid concept. You have certain directors who, like when they made Piranha 3D, or when you have something like Jumanji, where you have a director really go in on the stupidness, but have kind of fun with that. And I think The Rock's actually really good at playing in with the joke and have that working with him, and he is actually a fairly good, probably one of our best action comedy stars. It might not have worked out for Central Intelligence, but it did work out for Jumanji. And in Rampage, it feels like they're trying to do this serious big blockbuster thing, and certainly it looks like they definitely, after Jumanji did as well as it did, made The Rock come back and do reshoots where he has like funnier, quirkier dialogue. But for the most part, it sort of gets a little too serious and blockbustery. It does play like a B dumb movie, and that certainly works for it, and works for the whole idea of Rampage, because Rampage is obviously based on B movies, or the basic ideas of B movies, and does able to reference the video game in certain places towards the end. But to me, it's like if they had actually made more of a faithful adaptation of the video games, or had The Rock and other people transform into creatures, that would have been a lot cooler than just having like the humans go after them and make kind of just your average monster movie. You could have had a different kind of monster movie, and it feels like this is similar to Pacific Rim 2, where it's like it's B, it's stupid, it's like fun, it's made for 7-year-olds. But in today's blockbuster climate, like, am I really getting as into what this movie does? Because this feels very basic, kind of stupid blockbuster. You need to raise the roof a little bit. You can't just be delivering a Rampage like this. This feels like the Rampage that would have happened like 10 years ago, and I would have been fine with it. Nowadays, I'm like, I just saw like Ready Player One with a million different people in it, and the Shining sequence and stuff like that. Like, Rampage is not kind of like giving me that. I think a film from last year like Kong Skull Island does the kind of fun blockbuster 7-year-old boy kind of humor type of thing a lot better than this film does, but this film doesn't really have as much fun with it. It certainly has like interesting casting, it has The Rock do a few quips and so forth, which mostly still look like reshoots to me. Rampage is sort of like this. In your hometown, let's say, or wherever you live, I don't know, you should know that there's like a pizza place that's probably near you that you put up with, that you order pizza from, that isn't great, but it's close and it's there and it's always open and it delivers the pizza and it does exactly what you need it to do. When you have that pizza place that just delivers the pizza and you have no real love for it, you have no real affinity for it, its only loyalty is that it will actually deliver to your stupid ass, and you're happy because of that, but it's not great pizza. And that's what Rampage really is. It's like, if you need a big blockbuster, if you need a big dumb movie to watch on a Friday night, Rampage is going to do its job and you will be sort of okay with it. But Brad Peyton directs things in such a way where it's like, he definitely knows how to make a disaster film, he knows how to make a monster movie, but he's not having as much fun with it. He's not really showing a real voice through it, and it ends up being like, certainly he's a studio director, I get that, but he's kind of like a boring studio director. He's like the boring studio director that The Rock likes to work with for some reason, which I think is dumb. I think it's more fun when The Rock picks likes directors who have more fun with him and his persona. And Brad Peyton doesn't really. He likes this like serious rock. Before the conflict starts, he has a group of friends who then he leaves. It's similar to the structure of San Andreas. In both this and San Andreas, it's like not movies that leave that much of an impact on me, and I'm like, oh, The Rock did that, I guess, to bring up his box office quota or something like that. There's some parts of it I like. I like the end part, the end fight, where it's definitely referencing Rampage, and they reference it pretty blatantly, and that's cool. But it's sort of like, this didn't feel like a Rampage movie most of the time throughout. It just felt like a big giant monster movie, and like, so like there's a lot of this movie that I'm just sitting there going like, what is so special about this? Like, sure, you made a movie out of the game Rampage, but if someone had been a little more loyal or faithful to it, I think there's a fun like Joe Dante-ish kind of like quirky monster movie in there. Instead you get kind of like your typical big Hollywood monster movie, and that's like kind of like okay. I mean, it's like, this is 2 weeks out from Infinity War, and this is what you're giving to me right now. It just feels like rather weak. And I think The Rock is like, maybe should, I know he does a million projects, and this feels more like, you know, the B film in his filmography. They're like, oh, what did he do between Jumanji and that skyscraper thing or whatever? Oh, Rampage. And you're like, oh, neat. Feels like kind of the film you'd get on a box set collection of Rock movies, and kind of like Rampage, I don't know, it comes with it. He is a funny, very charismatic guy, and I think like this movie definitely is lucky to have him, but I don't know if it like really takes advantage of that in ways that it really should with a Rampage movie. And it's like, how awesome. I mean, I've never really truly gotten over the fact that he does not turn into a giant monster or something like that. How much quirky fun could you have with people turning into giant monsters and then, you know, shrinking down and becoming naked people and stuff? It would be funny, I think. Kevin Hart could play one of them. You have two people cast, I don't know, like get somebody to play the lizard, you're fine. I like the fun of The Rock. Not that Jumanji is the greatest film in the world, but it took advantage of The Rock's persona, and I really love that about it. And it feels like The Rock, like he makes like a couple types of movies where he does something like Jumanji, and then the Fast and Furious movies, and then he makes this other crap that we're like, oh cool, The Rock's in a movie, maybe I'll watch it on a plane, sort of, and like nobody really gives a shit because it doesn't leave that much of an impression. And this sort of feels like a slight step up. It's like you're putting up with it just because you sort of are in the mood for this sort of thing, and you've maybe seen all the other Rock movies, but it's not like something to seek out. It doesn't have a great spirit to it. It doesn't show, hey, you know what's amazing? The Rampage movie. And someone's like, really? And you go, no, fuck you. Why are you talking to me? I don't play a lot of video games, but this is a game that had a real impression on me as a kid. I played the arcade. I played it on a crappy old computer in the 90s, and I beat the game, and like I love the Rampage game. And I do think if you're the right director who would have fun with something like this, you could make a really awesome movie. But it's just like they made something else, and I understand it's all about brand recognition and the fact that Warner Brothers owns Midway Games, so they were like, hey, we can make movies out of this crap, just like the DC movies that work out so well. This is just like, why did you even make this and call it Rampage? Like, just for the name recognition? I guess it's your property, so you can do that, but it just feels a little stupid, like that this is even associated with the game, other than the end sequence where it did feel like they were starting to have some fun, but I didn't get that energy all throughout. And I like that, like, someone like Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in this, and he really brings it to this. He's playing like a southern cowboy or something for some reason. He feels like a character actor who's like, okay, I'm gonna go crazy, and they're like, sure, whatever, we don't give a shit, it's a Rampage movie. He's like, neat, I'm gonna be a cowboy. And so he just is. Malin Ackerman, who I haven't seen in as much stuff lately, which is sad. I used to see her in a lot of stuff, and now it's like she's not in as much. She was really funny as the villain, as well as Jake Lacey, who played her brother. They had some interesting fun with some of the casting, not all of it. If they had like a cast full of character actors really having fun, but Naomi Harris I don't think like really works as well outside of Bond and her English accent and stuff. But The Rock, it felt like he was a little too contained and like angry, and like the kind of Rock performance I don't necessarily love. I like it when he like rejuvenates a film and like brings so much love, energy to it, but it's like, I think him playing like the pensive kind of guy in, you know, both of these Brad Payton movies like this and San Andreas. It's just like not what I'm interested in at all. And it just felt like they put him in this because he's, you know, a big guy with muscles, and that's what they want in an action movie like this. Rampage, you know, it's often been called the best video game movie ever, and I guess that's like depressing because this movie is just so sort of fine and okay that it's like, oh, okay, I guess that makes the best video game movie ever, is just sort of the fineness of the stupidity. I think I should ask for more from my blockbusters than just kind of sort of how okay this was. It just didn't have much personality. It just felt very like generic in a lot of places, and most of the dialogue didn't have much of a flair to it. If they had like a really good comedy writer go through this, or if they had like had some more fun with this, it's just like there wasn't a lot of fun in most of the film until towards the end. It just felt like he was like beat for beat just making the studio kind of blockbuster kind of movie that he was supposed to make, and make it with The Rock, and that's what they delivered. But it's not the kind of Rock movie you go, oh, I love The Rock and Rampage. You're just kind of like, I don't know, we saw Rampage, and that's as far as Rampage is really gonna go. But sometimes I think, yeah, but did Rampage really want to go any further? It sort of just wanted to be a dumb blockbuster post B movies. B movies became blockbuster. That's what this is, but it's not interesting at all. It's just sort of like, it's interesting for Jeffrey Dean Morgan, it's interesting for Jake Lacy and Malin Ackerman, but you don't get that kind of a performance from The Rock. If The Rock had really just like fallen into this and done, you know, it's fine having him do wisecracks and stuff, but it's more fun seeing him like, you know, do an SNL bit or do what he did in Jumanji and play a 14-year-old or something. Like, that's fun, and they could have had fun with him being a zoologist who doesn't know how strong he is or something like that. There, I wrote your fucking movie. I don't know. It's just like, do something with him, and if you're not having him turn into a gorilla, then at least like have a reason for him to be there other than we need The Rock in this movie, because this film never, it just felt like, oh, he's The Rock in another Rock movie, cool, or he's Dwayne Johnson in another Rock movie, cool. Like, that's not really that exciting anymore. This just felt like a lot of elements from a lot of different things. You have video games, you have movies with The Rock in them, you have being bored, and you combine them all to make a Rampage movie. And that shouldn't be what a Rampage movie is. It should be fun and quirky and silly and be like, oh, this movie's so weird and stuff, you know, just like when I was a kid, because I'd be like, that's not King Kong, and you go, no, well, that's a wolf, and like you transform into him, and like, you know, for legal reasons this isn't blah blah, and you'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And same with like Lizzie and Godzilla and so forth, and you could have had fun. I mean, they sort of do that in a little bit of a scene, but they could have had more fun with iconography and things like that. There's a lot there to do that they just simply didn't, just by being kind of very basic in what they're doing as a blockbuster. And Brad Payton is very, I don't want to say good, but just he does do that, so that's neat. I'm sure the studio's very happy with him. It sounds like The Rock really likes working with him. I do think this is a lot better than San Andreas. Like, be a little more like, yeah, sure, I'll see another movie of his. I would never really think about Brad Payton's direction afterwards, you know. It just kind of, I see it and then it's like, okay, that's just, you know, kind of how we do giant monster movies now. That's how we do an earthquake movie, disaster movie thing now. That's just like how we do it, and it just doesn't feel that much more exciting. Just like feeling like the studio went, like, policy wise, this is how we would make this thing, and that's what Brad Payton sort of does. He doesn't inject energy to it. It's not like I want to see individually anyone's like a huge Brad Payton fan who really wants to see, you know, his next project and what he could possibly do with it, because it's just like so sort of like just there in the ether that you sort of feel like you've seen this movie before, and not in the cool Germaine Colette Serra way, more in the kind of like, oh, cool, that happened sort of thing. This is a film you put up with because it's on, and you don't hate enough to change the channel, but you don't like enough to really motivate yourself to like look up anything about it really, other than that Bull is actually suing this film because he has another franchise of Rampage films. That's sort of interesting. If you really love the Rampage games, I'd say maybe see it, but I think you would probably see it in such a level of apathy that, you know, you probably drown in it and just maybe not care about anything, or you'd be like, oh man, this is stupid fun and I'm okay with life. It's one of those. I don't know. So if you have seen Rampage and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.